Today, guys, I'm going to be discussing one of life's greatest mysteries, one of the biggest questions man has had since the birth of individual thought. This question is one of those which is that of a hypothetical scenario, and it's one of those things that it just creates so many more questions on top of it. It really provokes meaningful thought. It's one of those things that you might have had to discuss in school before, because especially today, it's such an important and relevant topic. And what this question is what if your fingers were twice their length? One of the most obvious and widely agreed upon conclusions of this question is that you would be able to reach things more easily, as in grasping objects off of high shelves, picking up the TV remote off the floor with relative ease. But it also poses more questions as to how would the mechanics of basic gripping be altered. For instance, if you were to hold a cylindrical object, would you hold it between your thumb and index finger as opposed to wrapping all fingers around the object? This may apply to regular household items such as a salt shaker or a flashlight, because if you think of it in this way, your fingers would be so long as to wrap around the object more than once, just as toilet paper wraps around its cardboard roll per se. Would it be awkward to have your fingers touching the inside of your palm as they would? Most theorizers agree that the former method will more likely be used, that of which you grasp the object with your thumb and index finger. This would result in the object being quite far from your palm as you hold it, but other than that, no other issues can be foreseen. With scenarios like these, other questions arise. The original question posed by Martin J. Ostenaldo gave no true specifics. If your fingers were twice their length, would you have twice the amount of joints within the finger, or would the phalanges simply be extended to twice their length? And furthermore, would this minor change in anatomy have a ripple effect in that heart rate would have to increase to account for blood reaching further down the fingers, or perhaps humans adopting a larger diet as a result of more nutrients being required in the fingers? Let's look at another possible issue. How would, say, holding a pencil or a pen be altered? A fork and spoon may function in similar ways. The most prevalent theory here is that it would be held in the exact same way. Since the finger proportions should be the same, the only difference would be that the object is held farther away from the palm. But recently, new philosophers have brought up the specifics of the problem again. If your phalanges are longer, doesn't it cause your fingertips to run further off the pencil, causing possible discomfort? Or if you have multiple digits, how could your digits bend in a comfortable manner? Would they be fixed in an arc or extended straight and taut? Another theory is that the pencil would be held with your fingers wrapping around the pencil. You will notice both these theories match those of the cylindrical object issue. However, for a pencil, there is even greater reason to avoid this method. A pencil is much thinner than cylindrical objects such as a salt shaker or a flashlight. Therefore, your fingers would wrap around the pencil perhaps 2 or even 3 times, causing more potential discomfort. Allow us to explore a more foreign area. What would typing on a keyboard be like? It is imagined that as current keyboards are designed specifically for human hands, that keyboards would have to be redesigned completely. But as that's somewhat cheating our way out of the issue at hand, we will look at it in its purest form. At first, theorizers hypothesized that it would most likely be the spacebar is too close to the ASDF JKL colon keys for the home position to function. But this was quickly disproven as the fingers are all still proportional to one another. Therefore, to utilize a home position method, all that would need to be done is to hold the hands further from the keyboard to allow the fingers enough room. But would that be done by placing the keyboard further up on the desk so that your hands would have enough space to rest? Or would you hold your hands up in an arc above the keyboard? It has been assumed by most that the former method would be used for maximal convenience. Since we have just talked about the keyboard, how about discussing its counterpart, the mouse? Current mouses are truly unfit for hands with double the finger length. If you were to grasp the back of the mouse with your palm, as is normally done, your fingertips would not be able to meet the clicking buttons as the mouse is designed for. Instead, they would run off the mouse and clicking would be done with the inner joints of your fingers. Unless you decided to base your grasp of the mouse off your fingers, with your palm not touching the mouse at all. But this would be a highly volatile method, especially during mouse-intensive activity such as clicking simulators. The mouse would rattle and shake and your grip would become unstable. This is why the former method garners more praise. Why don't we look at a more basic human function and stray away from handheld objects? To be specific, how would making a fist be changed? This brings back the issue of having your fingers touching the inside of your palm, or perhaps even touching your fingers to your own fingers. But some have started to ask if it would truly be uncomfortable. After all, it is just a theory. Many new philosophers have turned to being pro-palm touching in light of this recent discovery. Just as it might be uncomfortable, there is the same chance that it could be completely comfortable. But beyond that, this again brings up the issue of the specifics of the topic. If you had the same amount of joints, but extra length of the phalanges, you could make a fist so that your fingers dangle down to the wrist and come back up to meet the palm at the fingertips. But without that strong, tight grip, it could lose the meaning of what it means to make a fist. And what about snapping your fingers? A common misconception with snapping is that your middle finger and thumb coming together produce that snapping sound. However, in truth, it is actually when your middle finger hits your flexor pollicis brevis muscle that creates the actual sound. With this knowledge, is it possible for the middle finger with twice the length to hit that thumb muscle quickly enough and with enough energy to produce a snapping sound to the same effect? Anatomical physicists argue that you would get a slightly muffled snapping sound due to the decrease in speed and energy, similar to how snapping with your index or ring finger might sound. This concludes my analysis on Ostenaldo's age-old question, what if your fingers were twice their length? I encourage each and every one of you to study further into this wondrous subject on your own. It is truly a delight to examine and analyze the anatomical, social, economical, and political structures created by the length of our fingers.